think I started recording. Just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. So, all right, now that I'm recording, let me make sure. All right, perfect. So, as always, make sure you grab some pen and paper. Um, this will be going on YouTube, so you don't worry too much about it. It'll hopefully go by tomorrow, I would say. All right, so first we're going to begin with questions you should be asking throughout the admission process. Obviously, there probably won't be more questions that come up later on, but these are kind of starter questions for you guys if you haven't applied yet or are still applying to other colleges in general. So typically you want to ask what the admission deadline is, if there is one. So when you are applying to colleges or even after you applied, you want to know like when the deadline is in terms of applying, because some schools do have a deadline and you have to meet that deadline, especially if you really want to go to that school. But luckily for you guys, we don't have an admission deadline. If you guys were wondering, we are rolling admission, meaning there is no deadline. You can literally apply the week before school starts, which we don't recommend that, but that is an option for you guys if you guys are interested in applying later on, if you haven't already applied to Elmhurst. But definitely make sure you ask other schools so you know ahead of time of when their admission deadline is. And then next, not all schools require this, but you do want to ask sometimes before, if you haven't already applied, if there are letters of recommendations that are required. So every school is different. I do want to say though, for Elmhurst, we do not require them. Obviously, it's nice to have them if you would like to submit one. But I would say if your grades are pretty solid, everything's going well for you, we wouldn't stay around to, go out of the way for us to get that recommendation letter. So don't feel forced. Obviously, if you already have them, that's totally okay. You can send them over, but definitely ask those colleges when you are applying, wherever you end up applying besides Elmhurst. And then next, you do want to ask what their ideal GPA is. So I am going to be answering these questions for Elmhurst in case you guys were wondering, but when you do look at other colleges later on, if you do change your mind or something from Elmhurst, you do want to ask like what the ideal GPA is. So every school has their minimum GPA in terms of the admission process. We have our minimum GPA too. And in case you guys haven't heard about it, our minimum GPA is a 2.8 out of a 4.0 scale. So it's good to ask that depending, on like what status you're in right now. So I don't think I have any juniors here, but if there is a junior here, you do want to make sure you ask that ideal GPA so you work harder. Oh no, my bad. So you work harder the last year here at high school. So like I said, our typical GPA is a 2.8 out of a 4.0 scale, but make sure you ask that just so you know, in case you weren't admitted already or are still thinking of applying, make sure you ask for that GPA. And then test optional. A lot of students have been confusing this a lot, which is totally normal, regardless of who you are. I know me personally, I didn't know what test optional meant. Test optional basically means that you do not have to submit any test scores, standardized test scores. So you, if you do say yes to test optional in the future, because I know we had a few students who have applied to Elmhurst already who selected no for test optional, but they actually meant to say yes. So saying yes to test optional means that you are submitting an essay rather than your test score. Saying no to test optional means vice versa. So if you do not want to do test optional, you are required to send your ACT or SAT scores. So you want to make sure you ask the colleges. We are test optional personally. I know not every college is, but we want to make it as flexible as possible for you guys when it comes to applying. It's just a lot more smoother for you guys. It's we try to be flexible because we know what has been with COVID and everything. So definitely take advantage of that opportunity. If the school does have test optional, especially with us, to submit an essay. Typically an essay is just like your typical standard essay that you would write for a class. So definitely ask if the schools do have test optional. And if you do submit an essay, make sure you select yes. So what's required in order to be admitted to your university? So that's another big question that you want to ask instead, I would say, instead of just applying and not knowing what their requirements are, I would say definitely you can apply wherever you'd like, but I would definitely ask that ahead of time, like what the university requires. I know for us personally, as I mentioned, we don't require a recommendation letter. We do require like the GPA, and then we require, of course, the, give me one second. Submit someone. We do require the either that test score or the essay. So definitely ask what the school needs. And then for our test scores, if you are thinking of submitting a test score, make sure that it is above a 950 for the SAT, and for the ACT above a 17. If you have anything lower, that's when we suggest the essay for you guys to do. But definitely ask like what the requirements are to be admitted into the university. And as I mentioned, we do have that 2.8 minimum for our GPA. But if there's anything lower, we can definitely work with that too. So it's good to ask and communicate ahead of time with the admission counselor, because that's when they know you're interested as well and you can get admitted to that university. And then also, I wanted to throw this in because every school is different. Definitely ask them if you are applying to another school besides Elmhurst, if they require language, as you won't be denied or anything if you don't have a language, but for Elmhurst, you do have to take that 2-year language or that level 2 language. It could be there, French, Spanish, Mandarin, anything, Italian, anything, any kind of language, even sign language you could do. But make sure you ask that ahead of time as well. We do require those 2 years, but as I mentioned, you won't be denied or anything. You'll just have to take the 2 years of language here, or actually 1 year, typically, depending on where you're at Elmhurst. But definitely ask like the other schools that if they require any languages to be admitted. And then for sure, this is a big one that I feel like I personally didn't know about, and I know not many students know about. Definitely ask if the school is binding or non-binding. So if you guys attended my college jargon one webinar, binding means that the schools, if you do apply to that school, which goes along with my second question you guys should ask, if a school is basically early decision, majority of the schools are binding. So meaning you do have to go to that school, or else they will charge you if you don't. There is a penalty usually if the school is binding or has early decision. They're very similar, but not to be confused with early action and or non-binding. So if the school is non-binding, like us, means we won't get penalized. So you apply to Elmhurst, you got in, congratulations. And if you maybe later decide not to go to Elmhurst, that's totally okay. We cut ties. We don't like penalize you guys for anything. We don't charge you. I like to say no harm, no foul. So that's what non-binding means, which is a good thing. They don't like force you to go to that school. So please ask later on, whatever, wherever you apply, if the school is binding or non-binding. It's very important for you guys because you don't want to get charged, for a school that you don't want to go to. Okay, and then so this goes along with the early action and early decision, as I mentioned before. So I mean, typically if the school is early action, it's like us. We did have our November 1st deadline. If you missed it, that's totally okay. Basically, early action for us in other schools is there is like a early action deadline, meaning that if you do apply before a certain date, which for us is November 1st, you get your decision within a few weeks, along with like a gift and all of your financial aid that's being offered, along with a $500 award that we give. So it really depends. Ask the school if they do have early action. I think it's a plus, especially if you want to go there, to have your decision right away and to receive a scholarship on top of all the other scholarships you're receiving. And then with early decision, usually schools are either or, but there can be both early action and early decision. But please be careful, as I mentioned, with early decision. We are not early decision. Like I said, early decision, you have to decide right away, like if you want to go to that school 100%. So be careful with that. I would say try to go for the schools that are early action and non-binding if you're not so sure about those schools. But if you are for sure that you want to go to that certain school, you can definitely do early decision. And it's okay, they're binding if you are for sure that you want to go to that school. And then next, another good question, if you haven't applied already to a certain school, always ask if it costs to apply. So typically, I know a lot of schools nowadays, thankfully, are free in terms of like applying. Our application is free and we are in Common App. So make sure you ask if the school, if it costs to apply to a certain school, or if, give me one sec. Is there early action for the spring term? Good question. Also for questions, make sure to please hold them just a little bit until I'm done discussing about the presentation. So, but I will answer this one real quick. So there is, unfortunately, for those students who want to apply or who are applying now, there is no early action for the spring. Unfortunately, there isn't. Typically, it's just the fall, which is November 1st, but we can work with you. Usually, whenever you apply, after that early action, you get your decision right away, I would say anyway. So the only difference is you don't get that $500 scholarship, but we can work with you guys as long as you communicate with us. We can definitely see like what we can help you with. So no worries there. I would say early action is a good thing, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt if you missed it, I promise. But we can talk about that later on. And then so then once again, please ask what the admission counselors are really looking for in the application. Typically, I want to say as a first year admission counselor, we look at the GPA and we do look at test scores, but we do love reading about you guys. So if you guys want to, make a disclaimer or just talk about yourself a little bit more and explain a little bit more about yourself, we do honestly love reading essays. So, but it's totally up to you, of course. But yeah, we do love reading essays. I personally like reading essays to get to know you more. And it just makes it easier to know you as a person more. But definitely ask admission counselors what they're looking for. Because every school is different, every person's different. But I personally like to read about everyone. So yeah, I would definitely ask everyone, just like the way their style is. And then definitely ask throughout the admission process what events or visit opportunities that the school has, because you do want to take advantage of that. And it also looks good on your end because more likely you'll be admitted because we know you're dedicated to that school. Obviously, we help everyone out equally, but if you do show us like, oh, you really are interested, we can help you as much as possible, like even more, especially if you want like more scholarships or something, like we know you're really dedicated, we're able to help a little bit more. Just showing us that you really want to come to Elmhurst. But regardless, it's also good to know about the school. So definitely ask wherever you are applying, like what events or visit opportunities that they have available. Because it's also good to know about like all everything that's going on. And yeah, we have a lot of visit opportunities coming up in the spring. We did kind of wrap up a few weeks ago with our virtual open house. Well, we'll be having a lot more later on for you guys to get to know more about Elmhurst. And every school is different. So every school's having different events every semester, every year. And then the next one that not many students ask, but definitely ask this, I would say, because it's really important. After telling you about me, do you believe this school is the right fit for me? So that's not, of course, that question might be a little too upfront for everyone. I'll read the next question in a few minutes. So definitely ask if that's the right fit for you, because you want to know at the end of the day, you're investing in yourself. So you do want to know if the school is the right fit, or if, you're the right fit for the school. So definitely don't be afraid to ask that. We want to help you guys out as much as possible and like tell you the truth, like you're the right fit, or maybe you're not, like everyone has different styles, like all the schools have different styles. We are a small school, so if you don't like the small school, setting, we will tell you up front, like maybe this isn't for you, which is okay. Maybe you like the bigger schools, which is, like I said, totally okay. But definitely ask the counselor, whoever you're meeting with, if the school is the right fit for you. Because like I said, it's an investment within yourself, and you want to be somewhere where it makes you happy. Okay, and then I do want to answer a quick question actually. So we don't offer, depends what kind of, so for interviews, we typically only offer interviews for students who, let's say maybe like aren't doing so well in school and do really want to come to our school, but their GPA isn't doing so well. That's when we kind of offer interviews, so you can meet with the directors of admission, so they could, see if Elmhurst, let's say for example, have a, to see if Elmhurst is the right fit for you, for example. So that's when they like bring you in for an interview. But typically, if you're a good student and you have everything, that we ask for and you're admitted, like we typically don't offer interviews. And it also depends on a major, because there are some, like, for example, if you are a major in like some sort of, music or arts or fine arts or anything in general like that, there is like auditions and interviews, but it really depends, like, one, on the major and you as a student. So like I said, if you're doing well and everything's going well for you, we typically don't do interviews because we don't need to. We admit you, which is a good thing. But usually for interviews is for students, I would say that for certain majors and for students who aren't doing so well, and we want to get to know them more. And the directors maybe need to decide and make sure that they want to admit you. Good question. Oh, sorry. I'm not really good with technology. Okay. So next is financial aid. So there are a lot of questions. I didn't put many, but just because everyone's specific, everyone's situation is different. And we do have our financial aid office. So if you guys do want their number and email later on, I can definitely give that to you. But typically with financial aid, you definitely want to know first off, like, what the cost of the school you're attending, what it is, because you want to know, like, with scholarships and everything that you're doing, you want to know if it covers everything or most of it. So definitely ask when you do visit a school or just in general. You want to know how much it is upfront. And typically, depending on the school, but for us specifically, you don't have to, you never pay full price because of the scholarships that we offer. But you do want to know right away, like, when, how much the school is, like, depending, when you visit or if you're applying, feel free to email the school that you're applying to. But I can tell you right now, for the cost of attending Elmhurst University, is if you are thinking of living at home, I lived at home when I was a student at Elmhurst. It does cost around $39,000 per year. It sounds like a lot, but I promise you guys, after scholarships and everything, I would say it cuts a lot less than that. And if you do want to live at school, it is $50,000. Also for out-of-state residents, it's the same price. So it's awesome that we don't charge you guys extra. Just wanted to let you guys know. It's regardless of where you're from, it's the same tuition. If you do live at home, like if you're in Illinois, you live at home, it is $39,000. But for those who want to live on campus, it is an extra around $11,000 per year. But like I said, you never pay full price. If you guys want to know more about scholarships, I can get into that later. But yeah, so going along with that, after you do ask that, you do want to know, like, what kind of scholarships the school offers, whether it's merit-based grants, and then what types are available and how do you apply for them. So typically every school, once again, I just like saying that, is different. I don't want to, and I'll read the questions at the end if it's okay. Just so I make more time for you guys. So I would say that for every school is different, but for Elmhurst, you don't have to apply separately. When you do apply to the school, based off of your GPA and academics, we based off the merit scholarship from that. So every school is different, but we personally do not make you guys apply for separate ones. For example, though, if you do want to apply for external ones, like from a website that offers scholarships, that's a whole different story. You guys can do that on your own. But for Elmhurst personally, you guys don't apply for our scholarships. It's already embedded in the application. So whatever your GPA is, test scores, or if you submit an essay, whatever it is, that's what you get. And you get to work with your admission counselor later on. Give me one second. So I'll answer this one real quick, but the next ones, if it's okay with you guys, I'm gonna answer after I'm done presenting, so I make more time for you guys. So for students that are coming from out of state, for example, I can talk about scholarships real quick. So now that you guys do have that question, so for those of you who haven't applied yet or met with any of us yet, we do offer out of state grants for students who are not in Illinois. So if you're coming from another state, we typically add $2,000 more to what you're getting already. And then for students who are first gen or typically not minority, but the closest thing that we do offer are like first generation. For students who are the first in the family to go to college, that's typically another $2,000. But then also we add merit scholarships. So depending on your GPA, we offer $10,000 up to $22,000. Typically, the median of what students get is a $17,000 scholarship, plus the other scholarships that we offer, which, like I said, out of state is typically $2,000 more. First generation is $2,000 more. And then we do have like legacy, meaning if you have a sibling or parent that went to Elmhurst, you get legacy as well, which is another $2,000. So it piles up. We offer a lot more. And then also keep in mind, if you haven't already, please file for FAFSA. That's required for anyone in Illinois. So please file for FAFSA. It's a lot easier for you guys too, because you can receive free money depending on your situation. So that's also there too. And I would say typically a total of what students have gotten in scholarships and everything else is about $30,000. And then let's see. So another thing you want to ask if it's affordable for first generation students. I say also like the harder you work with like school and everything, you really show like, depending, like I said, every school is different, but for Elmhurst, you show that you really want to go to Elmhurst. We try to help you out as much as possible. Me being first generation student, I would say it was pretty much affordable after going through that college process. So never feel discouraged. And we can, like I said, you have your admission counselors working with you as well. And then, are there jobs available on campus for all students? So for jobs on campus for Elmhurst specifically, we have lots of jobs. Like there's literally over 50. There's literally a student working in every single building that we have. There's so much going on. I was an intern for the Office of Admission before I got this job. So that's one of the jobs that we have. We offer plenty of jobs, I would say, opportunities for students. And if you do apply for FAFSA, some of you will, which I can talk about this in another webinar. Some of you will get federal work study, which is optional, but that means you can get paid up to, between $1,000 to $2,000 per semester, depending, and you can work for that money at the school, and that'll be deducted from your everything you have to pay for the tuition. And then another question that you want to ask is, what money am I not paying back? So that's typically a question for those who already applied, who will basically, email your admission counselor. Everyone's assigned a different admission counselor. Email the Student Financial Aid Services. Like I said, I can give you guys that number and email if you guys want it. So you guys know later on like what you don't have to pay back. Usually your admission counselor, in every school, I would say, does a little cost payment breakdown, which is the last question that I have here. So for those who want a cost payment breakdown, make sure you ask your counselor. Don't be afraid, so they can do like a cost payment breakdown for you and show you at the end how much you'd be owing to the school. And like I said, if it's still too much, we work with you guys as much as possible. And financial aid is also there for you to help you guys. So another thing you want to ask is the difference between grants and scholarships. It's just more for your own knowledge. It's just really no difference. Both of those are free money. Besides loans, which is another webinar I'm having next semester. Loans is money that you have to pay back, but grants and scholarships are free money. Scholarships are basically like scholarships that you'd be getting for your grades, for your academic performance. And then grants are usually like money that you get, like for example, the American Dream grant for first generation students. But they're both free money that you don't have to pay back. So definitely make sure, well, actually, now that you know, that's what it means. And then who can I further talk to about my financial aid? So of course, there are your counselors that are there for you, but you also do want to talk to student financial services. There should be one in every school, and then there's one at Elmhurst. I do have their, like I said, email and phone number if you guys want it. That's someone you'd be talking to about like more kind of the nitty-gritty stuff with financial aid and like your FAFSA. Typically we do obviously help you with like everything with like the cost payment breakdown, but there's some stuff that we cannot see personally that you have to talk to a financial aid specialist for them to help you, because they can see your information more thoroughly. And then I'll get to that question in a few minutes, but I promise I'll answer it as soon as possible. Now, next is academics. So there's a lot of questions, of course, but the specific ones for the academics are here. So the first one would be like, does the school have my major? You definitely want to look at that. You don't want to go to a school that does not have your major because it's just pointless for you, it won't help you as much as possible, in order to grow and do what you want to do with your life. So please ask like what majors are offered at the school. We offer over 70 majors, for example. If you want to know that we have something, of course, ask us, ask everyone that visits your school, email whoever is a part of that school, and if you want to apply to that school, please email the admission office to make sure that we have that major for you. So please definitely don't be afraid to ask that. And another one is, can I double major? Because there's some students, it's not required, of course, but there are some students who want to do a little bit more than just one major. So definitely feel free to ask that to the schools if you can double major. Typically, it is a little more heavier, I would say, workload, but it is doable. But if for those students who want to do like more than just one thing, it is typical to double major and triple major at our school specifically. And then definitely another thing you want to ask is, are certain majors hard to get into? So depending on the major, especially you as a freshman, every school's different, but for us, typically we don't have any requirements as long as you're admissible to our school. So like I said, every school's different, but then we also have our pre-professional programs. So if you're doing like med school, for example, later on after Elmhurst, you do want to make sure you ask us for those requirements because, for example, medicine, we are affiliated with another school that can help you get that doctorate, that school has requirements, but you do want to ask us for those like more pre-professional programs, the requirements, because depending on the major, there are certain requirements, but for others, there aren't any requirements as a freshman, which I think is awesome, especially for nursing. If any of you guys want to do nursing, there aren't any requirements. As long as you have above a 3.0 out of a 4.0 scale, you should be okay. Which is, I think is cool because I know, for example, if you're transferring to Elmhurst, it is a little much more harder for nursing, I would say. But thankfully, there aren't many requirements for certain majors that you would like to do. And then you also want to ask what the largest majors on campus are, because of course, every major is equal. I was a communications major, but you do want to ask every school as well. So like who may have more connections or leads in terms of like jobs or affiliations. For example, we're the big school with nursing, education, psychology, biology, business, the arts are big majors at our school. If you're not one of those majors, doesn't mean we don't offer anything, but typically with those majors, they're just bigger. Well, we're well known for those certain majors, but every school, every major has the same opportunity. But definitely ask every school like what the biggest majors are, so you get an idea of how your major looks like in every school. And then another one that I've gotten, well, actually I haven't gotten this one, but I did recently learn, is please ask if there's an integrated curriculum. So I know a lot of you guys are taking AP classes, IB classes, dual classes. If you're going to, if you're taking classes at a community college while in high school, please make sure you ask, not us, but your academic advisor who will be putting you in classes once you do start school. Integrated curriculum means there are certain schools that have requirements. For example, like let's say we want you to take a fine arts, especially us because we're a liberal arts school. We have those requirements just because we want to give you, that knowledge from every single like aspect subject that we, that will be useful someday. Since we do have those requirements, you want to make sure that like your major covers that class instead of taking extra classes that you don't need. Because there are certain classes that you take for your major that will cover all of those areas of knowledge, is what we call. So make sure you ask that, depending, of course, I would love you at Elmhurst, but let's say you do want to check out another school, make sure you ask them that, because it makes it easier for you to just take lesser classes, I would say. And then the next one is, do you offer study abroad opportunities? Please make sure to ask that, because you want to know, for those of you who want to travel and do something, make sure you ask that. We do, for example, we do have study abroad opportunities, but yeah, and it doesn't matter what major you are as well. So, which I think is awesome. I never took advantage of that, which I kind of hate, but you do want to make sure you ask for those of you who want to travel. study abroad. It is the same thing, same tuition. So I think it's a much more affordable thing if you do want to like travel. So definitely make sure you ask if they have study abroad opportunities. But we do. And like I said, it's much more affordable. Regardless of what major, you can do it for a month. You can do it for a semester, a week, 2 weeks, a summer. That's totally up to you. And then what countries can students go to? So if there's a specific country you want to go to, you do want to ask, what country students can go to. For us, you can go to every country that you want. Students have been to over 70 countries. Doesn't mean you cannot go to the other ones. But those are just like the typical countries that our students have been to. There's more on it on our website, but you can go anywhere you'd like. So if you do want to study abroad, Elmhurst is a big school for that too. If you are interested, like I said, you can go anywhere, regardless of your major. And it doesn't change the amount of times that you're here or like, of years that it takes you to get your bachelor's. So you still take the same classes over there. It's just in a different setting and area. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. And another question you want to ask is, what type of academic advising is provided? Who helps students figure out which classes to take? So this is another good question because a lot of students, which is okay, I personally didn't know either, get confused like between a counselor and advisor. So you do want to ask and make sure who does that at certain schools. For us, typically in Elmhurst, we have our advisors, which are also they can also be professors too in a specific class. So for example, let's say psychology, we have a specific advisor who has their PhD, who has like, who can have a doctorate too. So typically advisors have the highest amount of education, like their master's or even, higher than their PhD. Typically, those advisors have that knowledge, have that connection, have that expertise, and they're the ones who are going to give you, more advice as to what classes to take, what jobs to maybe look at, what internships to get. And I think it's really cool because, like I said, all of our faculty here as well, I would say is very knowledgeable and, depending on what subject they're specialized in. And like I said, they have that outside world connection, especially us being so close to Chicago. They have that knowledge. They have like those, that experience around them as well. So definitely make sure you ask other schools when you do, visit those schools. But for Elmhurst, we do have our separate advisors for that specific class or major that you're doing. And they're the ones, once again, to help you with your schedule and then, figure out what classes to take. And then how do I meet with professors if I have questions or need help? So once again, depending on the school, I know for bigger schools, obviously no bias here, but for bigger schools, it might be harder just because there are over 100 students per class, let's say. So it might be harder for for you to meet with your professor just because of how big the school is. But for example, small schools like Elmhurst, oh no, I keep changing. I apologize, guys. I hate technology. Okay, but for let's say for small schools like Elmhurst or North Central, smaller schools like that, typically with professors, they do have their office hours, which is typically anytime between classes. So I would say they're very free, depending on the major that you're doing here at Elmhurst or a smaller school. But typically they're very flexible with their office hours. And it's good to know that because I promise you guys, especially if you want to excel, it's nice to meet with your professors or also advisors. It's nice to meet with them, make sure you're doing well, checking on your progress, or if you need extra help, that help is there for you instead of them being busy or, you having to look for someone else to help you with that. So I think that's really cool in my opinion, but make sure you ask that because it's really important, Obviously you want to have fun and excel with life, but you also want to excel with your academics. So make sure you do ask that question. And then another good question is, do you offer free tutoring? So for those students, which is okay, who struggle with writing or math or reading or something like that, the tutoring opportunities that we have here are free at Elmhurst, but I know some schools can charge. So depending on the school, make sure you ask that. But like I said, for Elmhurst, it is free. So whenever you need that help, they're there for you. Typically they're in a library helping. Like I said, it's free for you guys. So it's okay to struggle, it's totally normal. So if you do need that help, they're there for you too. And then another one, which I know might be too early, but is do you offer internships? Are they available for all majors? So that's another question that I think is really good to ask. Doesn't have to be during your admission process. It could be literally when you're a college student. So you do want to ask that just because you do want that experience. Like, of course, your academics are important, but coming from a student who went through this, at the end of the day, experience is very important. Like at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter the most. And you do want to ask for internships. Obviously every major is different. Like for example, nursing, you will have more clinical hours and simulation, simulation time with your class, which is totally different. Still gets you that experience, but it's different than business, for example, that where you do have to find an internship because it's business, you do want to find an internship downtown, let's say. So it really varies between the major, but please ask for those opportunities too, because you will need those when you actually have to apply for a job after graduating. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. And it's awesome because professors and anyone on campus is always able to help, and they're always happy to offer you jobs themselves or internships. So make sure you take advantage of that because, like I said, you can get a job before graduating, which I did. And it's really awesome, just knowing that your accomplishments, were seen. And then next is, do you have a career counseling office on campus that helps students? This goes along with the previous one. We have our Weekend Center for Professional Excellence. Every school is different once again, but we have that center for you guys to do mock interviews, prepare a resume, cover letter, help you write, they even lend you like clothing for interviews if you want it or need it. They help you prepare, and then they help you look for jobs and internships as well. So there's various resources, I would say, when it comes to that professional time, I would say. And then how are first gen students supported? So since this is a first generation webinar series, I did want to throw that question out there because sometimes it is important. You need that extra guidance. So we do offer the clubs, us personally, EC Connection, and then Blue Jay First. EC Connection is just basically getting you through that admission process and making sure that you are well knowledgeable about everything that's going to happen, the first few months of your college time as a freshman. So EC Connection is offered for those students who need that extra push throughout the admission process. And then we do have Blue Jay First, which is a first generation club that can help you out as much as possible as well when you are a student. And you can also get a mentor, like a big sister, big brother thing, which they can help you, throughout your whole college experience. So there are a lot of resources, I would say, as a first generation student, and definitely take advantage of that opportunity, regardless where you go. But make sure you do ask that because you want to go to a school that supports first gens, at the end of the day as well. And then I promise I'll get to that question in a few minutes. We're almost done with this. So campus life is another big one. Of course, you want to get, your studies in, you want to get that professional area in, but you also want to get that social life. So another good one, and just, you want to know more about the campus life. So a question that I've gotten, which is it safe living on campus? Is it safe going to Elmhurst? Is the area safe, and in a good location? Those are very important questions, especially if you're coming from out of state, I would say, because you want to feel safe in a community. You want to be part of a school that's where you're not like looking around all the time and like looking to see if there's anyone behind you or something, especially at night. So that's a very good question to ask a school because I think the location and how safe the school is very important. You do want to take care of yourself too. Elmhurst, though, I do want to tell you, is a very safe campus from experience too. I've had a lot of night classes and I felt safe walking at night. And it's just in a very safe location from experience as well. Elmhurst is a very safe city overall. I'm sure those students who have been to Elmhurst can advocate for that too. But I would say it's a very safe location, but please keep asking that question too, wherever you end up going. And then another question is, do most students live on campus or commute? That's another question you want to ask because there's some schools, not ours, but there are some schools where, let's say the population's bigger with commuters. And so there's just not much involvement. There's not much like life to the campus, I would say. But for our school, for example, it's half and half. I would say we have 29 undergraduate students who are pursuing a bachelor's degree. About 1,000 of those live on campus, and then the rest commute or live at home. I'd say from experience, you can't even tell who's living on campus or who's living at home, because the whole school overall, they're all very involved. There's always so much going on, so many clubs, so many fun events going on, that they're all just like, sounds cheesy, but I always say this, we're all just united as a community, which I think is really cool. So always, if you are interested in that like involvement and actually being involved in school, or joining clubs, you definitely want to ask that question too. It's just, how many students live there? How is the social life in general? Which goes to my last question, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. And then the next one is, does the college provide transportation locally for those students who, let's say, are out of state? Or how about to airport, shopping areas? So we are very close to O'Hare International, O'Hare Airport in general. So that's typically about 10 to 15 minutes away. So if you are interested in knowing about that, we're not too far from the airport for those who are, coming to us from another country or another state. And there are a lot of shopping areas that are literally like 5 minutes away, like a 5-minute walk from Elmhurst. So no need to worry about that, but definitely ask every school how far they are from the airport, how far they are from shopping areas, or if there is any local shop, that you can walk to. And then the next question you want to ask is, are freshmen allowed to have a car on campus? So that's very important, because as a freshman, especially, like I said, if you're not living on campus, you're not living nearby, you do want to be able to have a car. So please make sure you ask every school. We are allowed to have cars here, which I think is awesome. So make sure you ask make sure you ask every school if they have that. And then, how are students assigned to a roommate and or roommate? So typically when you do, decide on Elmhurst, you for sure want to come to Elmhurst. There's a form that you get to submit. So you can either choose a random roommate, or you can, if you meet someone beforehand, you can choose them as a roommate. And typically, you get the room that you want. But if you do sign up for a room later, it's first come, first serve. You might not get the one you want. So every school is different, but for us, I know it is first come, first serve for rooms. And then you also want to ask, are there co-ed dorms, or are they single gender? So typically with Elmhurst, I would say all of them might be co-ed, just because it's different by floor and wing, so everyone's different. But we do have them all typically co-ed, I would say. And then another question you want to ask is, what services are provided in the dorms? So you do want to ask if, you can do your laundry, how about the kitchen, air conditioning? So all of the dorms have kitchenettes, so you don't have to worry there in the same floor, depending on the dorm hall, because for those 4 upperclassmen have like apartment style dorm halls where they have a kitchen in their dorm inside their room, but a lot of them have kitchens in that floor. And air conditioning, only 3 of our 6 residence have air conditioning. So make sure you ask that as well. And then same with laundry. There's laundry in every room. I know for one building, you do have to like go to another, go to another floor. So it's different for every school, like I said. Let me answer the question so I don't leave you guys hanging. So is there any help with the cost to live in a dorm? So typically there is. So depending on, oh no, what did I do? Okay, so for that, we do have, it's all embedded in those scholarships and grants and financial aid. But for those who, like, let's say, who really need like a free dorm, we do have scholarship competitions that you can participate in. Let me know if you want more information. I can send you that link. Those will be happening in the spring, so you don't have to worry about them right now. But those scholarship competitions can grant you a free, free room and board, so free food, free dorm. If you are interested, I can help you with that or send it to you. But typically, like with scholarships and everything, we don't have like a specific one that's for that, if that makes sense. It's all embedded in that merit scholarship and like all of the grants that you receive and financial aid. But we can talk about that later, and you can work with your admission counselor as well to make sure that you're being covered with that, with the dorm life. And then, so the school does have a football team. We are Division 3. So if you do, we're still very big on sports though, like an involvement. So um, obviously we're not like competitive, like, those Division 1 that you would see on TV, Ivy League schools, but um, we do have a football team. We have a lot of sports actually. We have over, I forget the number, but we have like literally basketball, soccer, softball, baseball, all those sports, volleyball. We have a football team. We actually just had a homecoming in September, which is really fun. Or was it October? It was like early October that we had it, and it was really fun. There's a homecoming game, tailgating. Everything's the same here. We are a small school, but everything I would say is really awesome, and like the same thing as other schools, just like with a lot less people than like over 2,000 students that you would see all at once, if that makes sense. But yeah, we do have that football team. Okay, next. So what meal plans are available? You want to ask if you are living on campus. Make sure you ask that just so you know, like you're not being, you're not paying for the most expensive one. We have 3 meal plans here at Elmhurst. The lowest one, we have the one from the lowest one to the highest. Typically, all students like to aim for the middle one, which is all embedded in the tuition, except the highest one, you do have to pay a little more. Typically, we recommend those for athletes who eat a little bit more, just because, all the how active they are and everything. So we do have 3 meal plans, but like I said, every school's different. So make sure you ask that if you are living on campus, so you know like what you're doing and everything. If you are living on campus, everything at Elmhurst is a la carte. So it's not like a typical buffet style where you have to, use your card and sign in. And then like, serve yourself as a buffet. I think a la carte is cool too, because you get to grab what you want. And then like all the items like usually are available for you instead of like having that buffet style where they have to serve you, the exact amount and everything. So I think it's really cool. It's another good question too that you should ask. Besides Elmhurst, if you are thinking of applying to other schools, make sure you ask if they're a la carte or buffet style, because you do have more freedom with a la carte type of meal plans. And then what athletic teams do you have is another good question. As I mentioned before, we do have soccer, softball, baseball, volleyball, lacrosse is a big one here. So we do have basically all of your athletic teams here. We do have wrestling too, if you are wondering, but we do have athletic teams. So make sure you ask like also other schools too, to make sure that they have the athletic team that you want. And then what other activities can students get involved in on campus? We do have over 100 clubs and organizations. So typically with those, you do want to make sure like there's a lot of involvement, as I mentioned before, regardless of like how many like residents or commuters we have here. Our involvement is huge. Like as a student who came here, we have so many events all the time. We literally just had an event today, just like a quick event that students have at our Frick Center. If you guys haven't visited yet, it's just like this like kind of like family style couch area where we all get to relax and like hang out with each other. So there's always so many activities going on and so many organizations and clubs you can join. And what is really cool is that you can always start your own club if you don't see something that you want. And it's really cool because you can get an awesome award later on at the end of the year too for starting your own club. So I highly encourage that if you are interested. And then I basically answered the last question, but you do want to ask other schools, what is a social life for students? So we are obviously focused on academics, but we do have, students want to have fun. So there's always events, and there's our city centra about 5 minutes away from Elmhurst where students like to go to restaurants or other places if you're over 21. Cinemas, shopping centers too. There's so much you can do, especially with like this little city the Elmhurst city being so close to Elmhurst University. So make sure you ask the social life too, because like I said, you want to have fun. Like, of course, you want to focus on yourself and your career and everything, but you do want to have fun and make the most out of college. And then the last one, and I'll get to that question in a second, or after this slide. The last slide is a general one. So these are more general questions that I couldn't fit into certain categories. So another one is, how are first generation students supported? Oh, I apologize about that. I already mentioned in the other one. But in general, like I said, we have those certain like Easy Connection, Blue Jay First. We have our grants. We have a lot of our counselors are first generation too. So we can all relate to you guys. We always have like our own resources and experiences that we can help first generation students with. And then next is, what makes your school different or special? This is another good question to ask the school, especially if you're having a hard time choosing between schools. It's always a hard one saying something special, because we're all unique in our own way, but yeah, so similar. So obviously one that I could say is, we're a small school, you get that close connection with your professor, which is awesome, because our which goes, I know I'm gonna probably answer another question, which is the class size. Our school is typically about 17 to 20 students, I would say, per class. So I think it's something that makes us special, because I personally wanted to go to a big school when I first started my college experience. But I think what made Elmhurst so unique is just having that close connection with your, like, for example, I was a major in communications. My professor was there all the time for me, and thanks to her, I have a job, which is what, to me, is what makes it unique. I don't think any other school would have treated me as a person, if that makes sense. Sounds cheesy, but I don't think another school would have treated me as like Michelle. Everyone would just see me as a number. So I think that's what makes us special specifically. But please make sure you ask that question. It's just, knowing that you have someone right there with you throughout your whole experience. And even after, I still communicate with my professors. Just having all that support, people rooting for you, is what makes us special. Everyone treats each other, and not to be cheesy once again, everyone treats each other equally. Like, everyone's always saying hi, everyone's always being kind and smiling, which is something that I want in some place that feels like a home, especially if you're going to spend majority of your time there too. You want to find the right fit for you. And I definitely found that at Elmhurst, but make sure you ask other schools, and hopefully, they're able to all give you like a good answer with that too. And the next one is, how many undergraduates go here? I know I mentioned this a couple of times, but make sure you ask that as well. So 2,900 is for us, because like I said, we're a small private institution. So 2,900 students go, undergraduate students go to our school. And then, as I mentioned, our average class size is about 17 to 20 students, depending on the major that you're in. Which, like I said, if you don't like that, that's totally okay. But if you do, that's also awesome, because of that close connection and you being able to have more help from them. But that's a good question to ask also, especially, you're interested in bigger schools, or like I said, or even smaller schools. Like, definitely ask every school what their average class size is and how many undergraduates. It's good for you to know when it comes to deciding on what school's really, really going to be there for you, I would say. And then the next one is, what is your retention rate? So for us, typically it is about it is around 77%. So meaning, in terms of students who, as you see there, who continue on to their second year. So typically for Elmhurst, it is about 77 to 80%, which is I think an awesome number. We always try to help students out, even after they're admitted and start their college process. We're still always there to not make them give up on themselves. So yeah, it's a pretty high number, I would say. But keep asking. That's a very important question that I don't think many students ask. I didn't ask myself until I started the admission process as a counselor. So it's a really good question to ask and know, for sure. Like, of course, there's this many students being admitted, but you also want to know their retention rate, so how it's going to look like for you. Are there any specific cultural clubs or clubs related to my interests? So I did speak up to a few students about this. And that's a big question that they had when they were first starting their college process. Make sure, especially if you're very close to your culture, make sure you ask if there are any certain cultural clubs. We have a lot of those here at Elmhurst, depending on like you as a person and what you want to join. We do have a lot of very cultural clubs, religious clubs. So whatever that interests you, we have. And then clubs that are related to your interests, you definitely want to make sure you ask that. And then you want to ask for the diversity of the school. Here at Elmhurst is 50% are students of color, 50% are first generation, So you do want to, know like the statistics of the school, just for your own knowledge, if it's something that matters to you. And then what is your graduation rate? For us, it's typically 90% at Elmhurst University. So it's also good to know like that everyone's able to help you out and push you through that whole college process. So make sure you ask the graduation rate too, just for your own knowledge too, so you know that that school has a good reputation. And then another one is, can I go to community college first? Because there's a lot of students who think that community college might not be the answer, but then at the same time, it can help you. I went to community college first because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I also didn't know that you could go from community college to four-year college, and I was able to do that. So make sure you work with an admission counselor closely, even more closely if you do want to go to community college first and transfer to four-year college like Elmhurst. Like I said, as long as you're working with the counselors and everything, you're able to transfer easily, which is again, 2 years community college, 2 years at a university. So it's totally up to you, and it's 100% doable, especially if you're working with a counselor. Let's see, let's answer a question. What type of qualifications are needed to a full ride scholarship to Elmhurst? Good question. So unfortunately, we do not offer full rides. I know a lot of schools that are in Illinois, depending, majority of the ones, like private institutions like North Central, Dominican, and so forth, don't offer full rides, but we do have scholarship competitions that can give you a full ride. So typically, if you have, okay, well, first of all, we do, our highest amount of scholarship amount is 22,000. So in order to have the highest amount is at least a 3.8, 3.75 out of a 4.0 scale GPA. And your scores have to be really high. Like for example, if you have a 27 on the ACT and a 1200 on the SAT, or if you want to turn in your essay, make sure it's grammatically correct, well written, has a good story to it, and no punctuation errors or grammar errors. Typically, you're looking at the highest scholarship amount, which is $22,000, and plus the other grants that we give you and the financial aid that you get. So typically, students are able to get a total of almost the whole. Usually, students only end up owing like $3,000 to $4,000 a year, which is basically a full ride. Because then, if you really need more scholarship money, we can help you with that. If you really want to come to Elmhurst, let's say, or we do offer payment plans. So typically, trust me, I would say like typically it gets close to a full ride, but we don't offer the full rides, if that makes sense. So trust me though, it's I promise it's not terrible though, depending like you as a student. And then we do have our scholarship competitions for those who are interested. For those who are first generation, we have our American Dream Grant scholarship, American Dream Scholarship Competition, where you can get a full ride. So basically you'd be submitting a 2-minute video only. And you have to have above a 3.0 to qualify for the competition. So you'll be submitting a 2-minute video of letting us know what the American Dream means to you. And then, there's judges, not us counselors because we'll be biased, I feel. But there's judges. So based off of how good your video is, your 2-minute video is, you can get a full ride, like free room and board, free tuition. You don't have to pay for a thing. So that's a way you can get a full ride. And then also, if you do a lot of service, community service, donations, if you help your community a lot, there's another scholarship competition, which is same format as the American Dream competition. This is the Neighbor Services Society. And it's another 2-minute video of you saying how you serve your community. And depending on how good the video is, the judges will give you that full ride. So it really depends on you as a student, I would say, but good question. But I do want to be honest though, as long as you're a good student, a lot of students, whether participating in the competitions or not, are able to almost get the full ride. But I don't want to see it as a full ride because there is some like extra $3,000 a year that you have to pay for. But students have gotten close to full rides. Okay. And then, yeah, so that's basically, I wanted to make this like a short webinar for you guys. I didn't want to, I know I talked a lot, but I didn't want to make it too long. because I know it's a long evening. And these are our next webinars that are coming up. So the next one is the Blue for Parents, tips and tricks to save a few bucks. And the next one is getting to know EU, which is learning more about the Learning and Wellness Center. So you'll get to learn more about those opportunities and resources that are offered to you. And now I'm just opening it up to questions. This is my information. If you want to email me, you can definitely do that. Let me put the chat. Oh yeah, thank you so much. I answered a little too late, so I apologize, but I'm very glad I was able to help. So yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to email me. Feel free to let me know right now or mute yourself. It's totally up to you. No pressure. I'm available every day to answer emails as well or anything, so let me know. Yeah, I'll just stay on a few minutes to see if you guys have any questions. I hope I was able to help. This is going to go on to YouTube once again. I know sometimes it is very hard to ask questions because there's so much you can ask and you just forget. Of course, thank you so much for attending. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for attending. And like I said, I'm always here to help. Please take advantage of my information. Make sure you email me, call me if you guys have any questions with everything. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys' words. I hope I was able to help. I hope you guys have a good night as well. Like I said, please take advantage of my, contact information. I'm always here to help and try to help you out as much as possible with the admission process and scholarships too. Have a good night. Thank you so much. For spring application deadline. So are you trying to come in the spring, Tiffany? Or are you trying to come in the fall? Because if you are, oh, okay, awesome. Apologies. So when you do transfer, if you're thinking of coming in this, are you thinking of coming in this spring? Okay, thank you so much for clarifying. So if you are coming in, oh no, you're honestly ahead of the game. So that's really good. I wish I was like that. You're good. So if you're thinking of coming in the spring of 2023, you would be applying, because this is spring. So you can apply in the summer. There is no deadline, I would say, as long as you apply before September. I would apply by August so you can have a smooth transfer in the spring. So I would say August for you. Definitely, let me see. Why don't you email me too? I want to make sure in terms of like the early action process, because I always forget for the spring students. Let me put down my email if you want to. But I would say apply in August, but I want to make sure you also get the early action scholarship if by any chance, we're able to give it to you. But I would say please apply in August. So no later than September if you are thinking of coming in spring of 23. No, yeah, so January 15, it's not, so for spring, if you do want the early action, you can apply in January, but typically since we are rolling admission, if you're becoming in then spring of 23, that's when I would say apply in August. So it's totally up to you. I don't want to rush you because I know you do have to submit more transcripts later on. So it's totally your preference, but so either January, but like I said, typically all the students who apply for the spring do it in August. So it's totally up to you. And if you want to email me, feel free. I could get you in contact with your admission counselor if by any chance you don't know who it is. Yeah, please keep in touch with me. I'm always happy to help. I'll also speak with my colleagues too to make sure your transfer process is smooth. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Oh yeah, then you're in good shape then. Sophie is very much more knowledgeable with the transfer process. So yeah, if you've spoken to Sophie, then you're in good shape with everything. So please apply by then. Oh, awesome. You're ahead of the game. I'm really glad you are. So yeah, don't worry too much. I don't want you to stress out too much about that. You're definitely like on track with everything. I'm glad you've been talking to Sophie. But if you do, yeah, if you want that $500, I would say apply by that date. You too. Thank you so much.